Joining me tonight is Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League. That was Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, who doesn't often get choked up. And you have new data that I want to talk about. But first, how are you reflecting on today?
Yeah, I think this is a solemn day for all of us. I mean, to think about what happened. I mean, October the 7th could have been any normal day. And to imagine a world in which 1,200 people were butchered and tortured and murdered. Thousands of people were injured. And what's interesting is there hasn't been any respite since that day. So since October the 7th, this explosion of hate in America and around the world, since October the 7th, while we're trying to mourn, while we're trying to grieve, we've seen these activists staging what they call protests. They're more like mob scenes all over the country. So I think the Jewish community feels under siege. I mean, we had the Rosh Hashanah holiday last week, and in every synagogue in America, Kaitlan, you have to walk through metal detectors. You have to walk past armed guards just to get inside. I mean, that isn't normal. And I've had parents telling me about how they're encouraging their children to change their names and their Uber profiles so they don't sound Jewish. I've had college students tell me they're putting away their Stars of David or taking the mezuzahs off their door so no one knows their faith. I mean, a world in which Jews have to hide in the closet, have to, push down their identities, that's not the America that I grew up in, and I don't think we should tolerate that.
And when you say no moment of peace or even anything, I really feel like the only moment was when the ceasefire deal happened, and that was last November, and hostages were released. I mean, that was the only moment it felt like. And, the numbers that you're looking at about what's happening here in the U.S. is really dramatic.
Yeah.
It shows 10,000 anti-Semitic incidents between a year ago today and the end of September. It was 3,300 incidents the year before that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Imagine after literally the most violent anti-Semitic attacks since the Holocaust, we then had a tsunami of anti-Semitic violence. Literally triple the number of incidents over the same period of time. That's extraordinary. And again, I think this should be a moment to mourn and to grieve. I mean, imagine if after 9/11, we had hundreds of protests around the country against America and for Al-Qaeda. That's basically what we're seeing here. And look, I want a ceasefire deal. I want peace between Israel and the Palestinians. I believe there is a future in which, if both sides don't have some degree of dignity and equality, it's got to happen. But today, on October the 7th, this is a day to grieve the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims, the Israelis and the Bedouin and the people of all different nationalities who were slaughtered on that day, and that we're not even allowed to do that we're told we have to sort of equivocate. I think it's really reprehensible.
Yeah. Well, and just thinking, since that day, all the Palestinians who were killed as a result of what Hamas did, and looking at this, I do want to ask you, because this has entered politics as we were, in the home stretch of this presidential race. Trump said last month that any Jewish voters that vote for Harris should have their head examined.
Yeah.
But I just want you to listen to what he said today about this.
Nobody's done more for the Jewish people than I have. Nobody's done more for Israel as a president, maybe beyond being a president, if you want to know the truth. I should get 100% of the Jewish vote, and I don't. It's amazing. October 7th never would have happened if I was there.
I mean, he's also said that if he doesn't win, the Jewish people have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, look. I think there's no question that when he was in office, he did things like the Abraham Accords that were incredibly important for the region and was putting it on a path to peace. And now things seem to have unraveled. On the other hand, I think October the 7th isn't something that he or President Biden or any one person could have stopped, unless we're talking about the government of Israel. So there are real questions to ask about how October 7th happened. There are real questions to ask of the IDF and the Israeli intelligence. But today, on this day, it's not about President Trump or Vice President Harris. It needs to be about the victims, remembering what happened to them and focusing on that loss.
Yeah, and just their pain.
Yeah.
Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Kaitlan.